Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This week I'm going to start doing a handwriting and fine motor series of different tips and tricks that you might find helpful to try at home with your child, of different ways we can work on grasp, hand strength, and just develop those skills and be an excellent writer in the future. This is going to be a multiple series, so today we're going to start off with some developmental patterns of how we should be holding our markers, crayons, and different writing tools, and then what are some beginning steps that we can use to start to teach handwriting in our children. So the first grasp that we see is a palmar grasp or a fisted grasp. It is the same thing. It can go by either name. And that's where our fingers are wrapped around and our thumb could be on top, on the side, but we're really making a fist around the marker. We typically see this at 12 to 18 months or 1 to 1.5 years old. And this is the beginning stages of just presenting the crayon, the markers, and different writing tools to your child and watching them scribble along the paper. This is all just the beginning steps as their hands are still developing. They're learning to use their hands. Looking at the fisted grasp, we're seeing that the movements are coming from the whole arm, specifically the shoulder, and that's why they're coloring in such big strokes. Whereas when you get older and get to the more dynamic and static tripod, we're starting to see the skills are more refined and the movements are coming more just from the wrist. So at 12 to 18 months, that's when you see the less precise movement and it's full arm movements as they scribble along the paper. So at around 2 to 3 years old, we start to see a digital pronated grasp. Our palm is facing down towards the paper. Our fingers are wrapping more around our marker, and the marker is really resting on our thumb with our pointer finger on top, and this is starting to see how we scribble. Now the movements are coming more from the elbow and the wrist as we're working down our body instead of the full arm that we saw between 1 to 1.5. Ages of 3 to 4, we might start to see a quadruped grasp. So now the wrist, when we're writing, will be in neutral position for the first time instead of being pronated as it was previously. So we have our 4 fingers wrapped around, and you start to notice that more movements are coming from the wrist. Still a little bit the elbow depending on your child's hand strength, but we're noticing smaller, more refined movements. So at 3 and 4 and closer to 5 or 6, we might also see the static tripod grasp. So now we're using a 3-finger grasp. These fingers are static. They're not fully tucked in like we see during the dynamic tripod grasp, but they're there. They're not really moving, and we're holding our marker with 3 fingers. So now we're still moving with more arm movements, but mainly coming from the wrist. It's not only coming from the fingers at this point. It's still getting the assistance from the wrist as we're writing, but we're progressing nicely. With the static tripod, we're really pinching with the 2 fingers, and our 3rd finger over here might be tucked on the side, and that's how we're forming the tripod. These fingers aren't fully tucked in, but they're there if we need them as an assist. At around 3, 4, you start to fully notice that your child may have a hand preference, and by 5 and 6, they should have a hand dominance established, as well as starting to use their other hand as the helper hand to hold and stabilize the paper. So by ages 5 and 6, you're entering kindergarten, and now we can get into the dynamic tripod grasp. We're still pinching. We're resting our marker or crayon, pencil, whatever we're using, on our middle finger, and our 4th and 5th finger, our ring finger and pinky finger, are tucked into the palm of our hand. They're tucked away, and now we can practice writing. We're learning letters at this age. We're beginning the stages of fully writing. We moved away from not only coloring, but now to more writing. And now the movements that we're using are coming mainly from our fingers. We do not have to see the wrist and the forearm moving, because now we should have more hand strength. We're older, we've developed our skills, developed our grasp, and now we see the fingers are moving the marker rather than the full arm. A quick little disclaimer that each child progresses differently, and this is just age range and estimates and things that you might be on the lookout for or might be helpful to you, but again, it is just age ranges and estimates from my own experience and what I've learned going through school and working. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned for the next video in this series. Don't forget to smash the like button and subscribe.